Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Emma. Hey, Emma.
Hello. How come I get second billing?
It's called Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. Not mother gets called by his Jewish son. It doesn't fit very well. It seems a little off.
Okay.
I know we wanted to talk about a few things. I have a few marks about some stories about you teach piano, and way back when you taught piano to somebody who their mother and father, they couldn't afford lessons, but you had a tactic to get them to sign up for more piano lessons.
Here's what happened. This little girl really enjoyed the piano lessons and was getting a lot out of it. And it's amazing, like some of these kids, when they take piano lessons, it's been proven that music does something for the associative areas of the brain, that they actually improve, like music, not just music, but art also, for those kids who are inclined more towards art than music. But that the arts in general, art and music, does something for the associative areas of the brain. That they found children who participate in particularly music do better in other areas of school. And also they do better in hand-eye motor coordination. So the mother did not want to give up the piano lesson. She saw her daughter was enjoying it and getting a lot out of it. The father felt that it was a luxury that they couldn't afford. And the rates that I charge.
Yeah.
I do not charge a lot of money.
They're a steal.
Well, I don't believe in charging a lot of money because, quite honestly, I know that if these families can't afford it. Simple as that. And if a child wants to take lessons, I never turn anybody away. I always try to, work out something for somebody. If they can't pay, we'll work out something.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so the father was insisting, no, that he wanted this little girl to stop her lessons. They can't afford it. It's a luxury. So the mother was, of course, very upset, and we were wondering what to do. So I had an idea. So I asked the mother, does your husband have a birthday coming up? She said, yeah, in just a few more weeks. I said, good. I said, I'm going to teach your little girl how to play Happy Birthday on the piano. So I taught this little girl how to play Happy Birthday on the piano. And I told her, now here's what you're going to do for your father's birthday. You are going to play Happy Birthday for him on the piano. And when you are finished, you're going to turn around and say, I love you, Daddy. And you're going to run over and give him a big hug and kiss. So a few weeks later, when it was a husband's birthday, when it was a couple lessons later, I asked the mother how it went. She said, her husband said, oh, honey, he says, I love that so much. You may take lessons for as long as you like.
That's adorable. So I guess people will do stuff for money. Like, I know when I was a kid growing up, I really wanted a Game Boy. I'm not sure we talked about the story, but on the podcast, but I really wanted a Game Boy. You guys couldn't afford it, so I convinced my younger brother to help me raise money. By that, like, he would somehow come up with cash, like, by asking his friends. I don't know how he did it, but he would come up with, like, a $20 bill one time. Like, oh, my friend gave it to me. I'm like, okay, alrighty. But I used to sell my lunches, part of my lunches, the tradition soups, for $1. So then I would sell for $1, and we raised like $70, and then Ann paid for the rest, and which was the Game Boy, I think, was $80 back in the day. So that's what it was.
Wow, that was a lot of money.
I
remember, I don't know if it was you or one of your siblings, that when I found out they were selling their tradition soups, I said, look, I pay for these and you're selling them, I deserve a cut.
Oh yeah, I think that was me. But I only did it in order to raise the money for my video game, and that was it. Did you do anything like that growing up? Did you try to, like, sell anything?
A very funny story about that. Well, I remember when I was 10 years old, there's not too much a 10-year-old can do, but there was this college student who was going to University of Maryland who lived around our neighborhood who had a dog. So I knocked at his door and I offered to walk his dog for money. And he paid me $2 for walking his dog. And I brought the dog home, and my mother and my sisters, hey, where'd you get the dog? Where's it? I said, I told them about how I'm walking the dog for this man. But I remember when I was real little, I must have been about 6 or 7. My father told me stories about the famous artist Henri Toulouse-Lautrec, and that how he used to sell his paintings on the corner to earn money at first before he became a famous painter. So being inspired, I took some papers and crayons, and of course I colored some pictures, and I went to the local supermarket and I stood outside trying to sell my pictures.
That's adorable.
And this woman gave me, I think, a nickel or 10 cents. And she started to walk away. I said, hey, wait, you forgot your picture. And she goes, that's okay, honey, you can keep the picture.
Oh my God. Geez, that's funny. Yeah. But did your sisters do anything like that, or make money somehow, some way?
I'm trying to think. Not that I remember. They might have, and I wasn't aware of it.
Well, I know you
But
worked out.
See, my sisters were a little more normal than I was. So I don't know if they did anything like that outlandish. Like the time I sneaked into the movie theater when I was 7 years old, for that, watch that stupid movie. Anyway, but I wanted to kind of switch the topic to today's activities. I was cleaning the refrigerators for Pesach.
Yeah.
And I just, oh my God, some of these refrigerators, to take the shelves off, to clean them around, with all the little crumbs and everything. Okay, taking them out is maybe not so bad. Putting them back in, some of these refrigerators, you need a PhD in engineering to figure out how to get these shelves back in. And it's like you're struggling to get them in, especially when you're trying to attach the little cabinet on the bottom to the shelf. And it's like, you can't remember how the shelf went. Like, wait a minute, now did this little wheel go on the front or the back? What makes more sense? What doesn't make sense? How did this really fit in? And then finally you figure it out and you get it in, and then it's time to put it back in the refrigerator and you can't fit it in. And you go, wait a minute, if I was able to get it out, I should be able to fit it in. And it's like you spend who knows how long. Cleaning the refrigerator is one thing. Putting it all back in, that's what's time consuming.
That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing.
And I also want to talk about where we went tonight for dinner. That was interesting. Okay, what happened was that I knew a kosher restaurant opened up around closer to our area where we live in Florida. For years, I mean, the closest kosher restaurants were like a half an hour away. But one finally opened that was just 10 minutes away, 10, 15 minutes away. And so me and your sister put it on the GPS. And I'm sure everyone's had this experience where you put something on the GPS, you follow the directions, and it takes you someplace and it says that you're there, end of route, or 1 minute walk, and you're looking and looking and looking, and you're driving around. And as you're driving, I keep saying, you're there, only 1 minute left, you're there, and you're looking and looking and looking. We could not find this place. We only knew, according to the GPS, it was almost on top of us, but we couldn't find it. So your sister, on a hunch, had an idea. She drove into the next parking lot where we were, and this parking lot was the parking lot to what looked like an abandoned warehouse. And we're looking, I mean, this place is deserted. And like I said, it looks like an abandoned warehouse. And according to the GPS, we're here. What in the world, did our GPS do? And finally, we're driving around. We finally see a sign on the end of the block with an arrow with the name of the restaurant pointing. It says in the back. We go in the back. We drive around to the back. We couldn't believe the location of this place. You talk about being someplace in like boondockies or whatever,
Boondocks.
First boondocks. First of all, we see this huge green dumpster. And we drive around, and the restaurant, the door to the restaurant, the entrance was right next to this huge, smelly, dirty green dumpster.
Wow.
And next to the restaurant is, in Florida, we have these canals. Next to the floor is this canal. And next to the canal is where you can park your car. So your sister's driving, and I'm telling her, don't go too close to the canal. I mean, I'm afraid our car's going to go right down into the canal. So we park the car, and we go into this place. Very, very interesting cuisine. It was set up in a way to remember when you were a kid and you went around to some of these cute little play cities, these fake cities that were designed for children to play with, to play in, with the fake stores and the fake signs and the fake street signs and the fake, plastic fruits and vegetables with the fake grocery store that you could pretend that you're shopping. That's exactly what this place looked like on the inside.
Wow. So I guess for jobs, what's the worst job you've ever had?
Oh God, that is a good question. Worst job. Oh man. Oh, there were so many of them. Let me think.
Well, the earliest worst job.
Worst job.
When did you start working anyways? When did you start working?
You mean a real job?
No, just anything like working in general.
Well, I used to do little, chores around the house that my mother would pay me for.
Okay.
And then, of course, there was that dog walking job. And then when I hit like around 13, I think when I was 12 or 13, I got my first babysitting job.
Oh, babysitting is what you started doing.
That was terrific. I love babysitting. I love kids, and I really enjoyed my babysitting jobs. And I babysat a lot. Oh, believe me, I babysat a lot all throughout high school. In fact, what happened was when I was in high school, a lot of my friends were getting jobs in stores. And I was going to all these stores and putting in all these applications. And for some reason, I wasn't getting any calls. Quite honestly, I don't know if we ever talked about this in a podcast, but as you know, especially during the summertime, I'm a dark complexioned Caucasian. And I have been mistaken a few times for being biracial.
Yeah.
Especially during the summertime. And my sister and I couldn't understand it. My mother couldn't. None of us could understand it. I certainly gave a very nice appearance. I spoke well. Why I was not being hired. So finally, my mother had an idea, and she says, "Look," she says, "you really do well in school, and I want you to continue doing well in school. And if you were to work part-time at a store, you wouldn't really have time to really study, or also I played violin and I sang. You wouldn't have time, and played piano. You wouldn't have time to practice your music." She says, "Whereas when you babysit, once the kids are in bed, so then you can study, you can practice, you can do all sorts of things." And she felt it would be better for me just to strengthen my babysitting clientele and just work on that. That way, And she said, and she says to me, "You'll see." She says, "You'll learn just as much as if you were working like 2 or 3 days a week at a store." Then many years later, my sister and I were going through pictures of ourselves when we were teenagers, and we happened to see a picture of me. And we looked at each other and our mouths fell open and we go, "Oh, that's why." Racial discrimination.
Wow.
We saw that picture, we looked at each other, we said, this is why you weren't getting any jobs.
Do you have any pictures of you as a kid? I can't seem to find any.
I should. I'm trying to think. Yeah, there's this one picture, I think you've probably seen it, of me and Aunt Ann. She was 13, I was 10. And it was in one of these teeny little frames. And our pictures were next to each other. But I want to go back to your first question about the worst job.
Yeah.
Working behind that deli counter.
Oh yeah, I remember that. You told me. We talked about this in the podcast, like an episode or two, about working at the deli counter. What, you had like a really crooked It's a really crooked owner, right?
Management. Yeah. Well, it was I think it was one of these I think it was a chain store, but
Mhm.
they're no longer in existence. It was called Pantry Pride. And yeah, I mentioned before, there were some things that they wanted us to do, which really were totally played wrong. Like they would have they would have Swiss cheese, like these two big slabs of Swiss cheese that you slice up. And one said imported, one said domestic. There was no difference. It was really the same cheese. But if the
Oh, I remember
customer
that.
asked for,
Yeah.
if
You asked for
customer asked for
imported, you
imported,
jack up the price.
I wouldn't, and I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Except for this one customer who, when I gave the
Yes,
cheese,
I remember that story.
yeah, she threw it back at me.
Yeah, and
And
demanded.
she yelled at me, yeah, and I tried to hint to her that I'm not trying, that, hey, this is the same cheese. And so I said, madam, I'm going to give you a slice from each of these slabs of cheese. You tell me if there's a difference. You know, she insisted very vehemently that there was a difference.
Yeah, because some people just have that in their heads that they think they want the fanciest, they want the best. They lie to themselves to believe that that's, what they're getting, and that's all. The other thing is also packaging is a whole big deal. Being told something and paying for something versus getting something for free makes you feel different things. That's also a real difference.
Oh, I like getting stuff for free. Maybe I'm different from this. That's why I'm different.
Yes, that's why you're different and special and unique. 100%.
Well, I told you that time that I saw something very interesting in a store once, that I thought somebody might have been doing a marketing research project.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, the mayonnaise.
Yeah, the mayonnaise. I remember that story. Did we talk about that on the podcast? I think we did.
I don't know if we did or not, but I'll repeat it in case people are just tuning in for the first time.
I guess.
Okay, there was a display of mayonnaise. One side of the display of mayonnaise said Miracle Whip, and it was like 20 cents more. The other side of the display had a very plain wrapper around the jar of mayonnaise that read imitation mayonnaise. And one by one, I saw people walking over, picking up the imitation mayonnaise, making a face, putting it back down, and grabbing the Kraft's Miracle Whip. So I was curious. I walked over, and of course, I picked up the 2 jars of mayonnaise and turned it around to the ingredients. Yep, exact same ingredients. No different.
I actually, because of that, I look at ingredients nowadays, and when I'm looking at the difference between different kinds of mustard and things like that, you really notice a difference where it's like they're just a jacked up price when it's the same thing.
Or sometimes even the medicines, I picked up these eye drops. I used to buy these name brand eye drops because my eye doctor recommended them. And then I was curious about the more generic type. And so I compared the, you wouldn't say, how would you say, you wouldn't want to say ingredients when you're talking about medicine. What would you say? For medicine.
Yeah, the ingredients. I think the
ingredients. I don't know about ingredients, but the chemical composition. I want you. There's got to be a medical term for it, but anyway, and yeah, it was the exact same, the exact same solution. Only one was a few dollars more.
Yeah,
like $3 or $4 more.
So when did you start working for? When did you start working for Burger King, right?
Oh yeah, that was my first job right out of high school.
And you enjoyed it?
It was okay. It was okay. It was whenever you're working in the food industry is always the food industry is not a Cinderella job.
No, I've worked in the food industry. I understand.
Yeah, it's messy. You get messy. It's I remember my mother, when I would come home from Burger King, my mother would say to me, "Go take off your uniform, put your uniform in the wash, and take a shower before I eat you," because I smelled from the hamburgers. But I remember, I want to go back to the Pantry Pride. Another thing that they wanted to do was they wanted me to take the ends and sneak a little bit of the end into the regular cut of meat, cut of deli. And one of the managers was showing you how to do it, how you hold it by your side, You cover it with your hand. You make sure they don't see it. You know, I said to them, I said, don't even show me because I'm not going to do it. And I walked away.
Oh, wow. Now, so I was going to say, because I remember working for a catering company here in Baltimore, and it was great. I loved working for them. It was just like me and all my friends would be working for them. We'd pull long hours. It would be like from 7 in the morning to 1 o'clock at night. We'd be on our feet the whole time, but it was great. I loved it. It was just a lot of fun, a lot of good people. And it just, there's a fun to catering that I really enjoyed there. Actually, you learned a lot of these tips and tricks and how to make things look nice and fancy. You know, certain workers were able to be like all, set up the tables and make them all nice and flowery and whatnot. It was a good experience. It was a good learning experience. What's funny is that Tati didn't want me to start working, actually, because he started working, I think at the age he started working at his father's shop in 2nd grade. And he didn't like that experience, so he didn't want us to have that experience. But what happened was that my younger brother, I wanted to work with this catering company, and Tati said no. And then my younger brother got a job at another catering company that hired him, and I'm like, that's not fair that he gets hired and I don't. And the whole joke was that Tati had no idea that they were going to hire him. They didn't realize, because he was, I think, 12 at the time. I think I was 16, and they hired.
I don't think he could have been. Are you sure 12? Because I don't think they're allowed to hire anybody younger than 14.
Well, that was the whole point. The other catering company that he was working for was kind of on the cheap side, and so that was the whole point. And then I was all up in arms and whatnot. And then that's when I was able to start working for this other catering company.
I think a lot has to do with the work environment, the people you're working with, the boss. Our managers at this particular store, I don't know, the managers were really unreasonable. They really were. They were kind of nasty in a way. And,
did you make any friends though when you were working at like Burger King or anything like that? Like just for those short moments?
Well, no, not really. Well, I had a couple friends. I had a couple, not friends, but I had a couple like people who I went to high school with who also
worked there.
As far as like friends go, yeah. As far as friends working at Burger King, I never made any like real.
Well, I'm not talking about super close, sharing blood kind of thing. I'm talking about you're friendly. You have some inside jokes. You talk about different things. You chit chat.
I guess. Well, I got on pretty well with most with most of the people there. Some of them were very interesting. There was one girl there who, she was only, my goodness, she was like 16, 17 years old, something like that. This was a non-Jewish girl from, like we would say in Yiddish, they call it Presta Goyim. Somebody from like low socioeconomic, place, you might say. And her mother threw her out of the house. Just like that, just goodbye. And so this girl was kind of left to fend for herself, and she got this job at Burger King. And she was one of these real, like, tough cookies.
Yeah.
She was trying to show me how to use the milkshake gizmo that goes around and around real fast.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you what happened the first time I used it.
Everything exploded and it's all over the place. Giant mess.
Oh, the way that you have to use it is you have to put it in like little by little, gradually, and then speed it up more and more. I turned the thing on, stuck the cup right in under it, and I was totally covered with strawberry milkshake. And she looks at me, she just looks at me and yells, "What are you, glued? Go to the bathroom and wash off."
Oh, geez.
It's like, you wouldn't believe that what she used to like to do for fun during, like, when there were no customers.
Yeah,
and,
what would you like to
and
do?
business was slow. She used to like to make Whoppers and then weigh them on the scale to kind of like a competition with herself to see each time if she could make a Whopper that weighed more and more and more and more. And she would, add more pickles, add more ketchup, add more this, but and wrap them up and then put them on the scale. Oh, that was 5 ounces. I'm going to go for another one for 6 ounces now.
That's awesome.
She would do that for fun.
That is hilarious. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ima. And that is our time.
Hey, sweetheart. Okay. And you have a kosher Feiach Pesach.
Yeah, you too.
Sidurim. Have a great time. Have a very how can I tell you have fun at the Seder?
Yeah, no, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be fun.
Do you remember those little toys they came up with the Seder for kids, where there were little plastic frogs and there were these little ping pong balls for hail that the kids could throw at the table at each other?
Yeah, I remember those.
It was the 10 markers. They were fun.
Yeah, that was actually really enjoyable. All right, Ima, I love you.
Love you, honey. Mwah. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I know you would like it, and my mother would too.